to deliver.
It's nice to know that you're still tuned in and you're still there with us on this weekend edition of KAKAAKI, the African Voice. We will be taking a look now at Rivers PDP governorship race, the agitation to respect zoning formula. Now, the dust created by the protest and backed upon by supporters of 16 governorship aspirants from Rivers State at the National Secretariat of the ruling People's Democratic Party, PDP, is yet to settle.
Well, the 16 governorship aspirants whose supporters were tear-gassed by the police were protesting the non-inclusion of their names in the just concluded screening exercise.
Well, before this protest, there have been agitation for PDP to respect its zoning principle in Rivers State.
Now, the riverine areas of the state have long been agitating that it is their turn to produce the governor because the two previous occupants are from Ikwere areas.
That was why the All Progressive Congress APC picked its candidate from the riverine area of the state.
Now, the decision of the APC to pick its candidate from the riverine area is now giving many members of the PDP in the state worries as to the fortune and ability of their party to win the governorship election.
What will be the effect of the zoning crisis on the governorship and presidential election in the state?
Now, to discuss these on KAKAAKI, the African Voice, this Friday, we have Engineer DAGOGO Jack. He is the immediate past chairman, Presidential Task Force on Power, and currently an aspirant for the office of governor in Rivers State on the platform of the People's Democratic Party. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Engineer Bex, it's nice to have you join us this morning.
Once again.
Before we look at the primaries are coming up on Monday, but let's quickly look at this controversy with the zoning system in Rivers State PDP. The Aquarius have been set to rule to govern Rivers State in over 2 decades now, and if another person from that area is elected, particularly in the person of former Minister of Education Nyesom Wike, there seemed to be a lacuna, there seemed to be a problem in that area. Why has this issue not been resolved? It's been going on for way too long now.
Thank you. I think you got some perspectives right, but essentially the queries have not been in office for 2 decades. We have a sharing model which has existed for years, and it is upland riverine. So if you look at the upland, they would have been in office from Odili's 8 years to Amechi's 8 years, would have been 16
years, okay.
So that should be put in perspective. Going further down the stretch, there is a sense that most people, most rational people, would not have believed that that order of sharing would be ordinarily violated by anybody who believes in the peace and development and amity and coexistence of the state. But when that showed up, these reactions that you see followed, and the reactions will not abate until equity is established.
Well, we saw a protest at the PDP headquarters, agitations about, concerning the former Minister of State for Education, and, the fact that the people in Rivers State are not happy that he may just be the candidate, the chosen one, and that is another concern that is 16 other aspirants have raised over time. How far has that case gone, and how has it been resolved so far?
Yeah, we're looking up to the party to do the right thing. Like you mentioned in your background, it's actually a constitutional provision of the party to respect and uphold the principle of zoning of certain elective offices that impact social development, that impact on people, that it should go around so that everybody has a sense of belonging. We are still waiting on the party to abide by that.
But the primary is on Monday, the 8th. That's very close.
That's correct.
So how far has the party leadership gone in resolving this crisis? Because the APC, the opposition party, which is the ruling party in the state, has chosen its candidate, and it chose its candidate from the riverine area. Does this not serve as a threat and of course an urgency for the PDP to resolve its crisis?
You can say that again. All of us feel the urgency. We believe that the party leadership ought to have felt the urgency and ought to have done something by now. And I tell you, going down the stretch, we also have issues. How the mechanism for conducting that primaries is well known. It's a history that everybody knows. It's going to be done through a delegate that largely elected at the World Congresses. The World Congress election process was clearly defective. So the product of that effort could never be the basis for any kind of level playing field. It's going to be very difficult unless there is going to be a party leadership intervention that creates a sense of equity which people can see, feel, and touch. If you look at the example in Delta, there was a sense that all the stakeholders came together and said, let's do it in such a way that nobody will feel shortchanged. And after that, everybody felt a little bit of security evenly going into the competition. Look at delegates. We didn't discover the concept of delegates. We took it from other democracies. And delegates are essentially custodians of the party. And they know the values and the core values of the party. They try to protect them through the kind of choices that they make. So when you know delegates, you go and sell your candidacy to them. You try to convince them that if you take me, I will protect the party principles. But what am we seeing now increasingly? We are beginning to see almost the concept of ghost delegates because we don't know who they are. And then they suddenly creep into our space and then determine the future of both the party, the people, and the country at large. That's not acceptable.
Engineer Beggs, there are two major issues. Some aspirants have said that they can't find their name in the list. Now, the primaries, again, these primaries are coming up on Monday. Now, for you as an aspirant, how does this crisis affect you? Because I'm thinking delegates have the power to elect the candidate that they want. If you've put up yourself and this provision in the constitution of the PDP is there, isn't it possible that, the Rivers people, the Rivers delegates will pick the right person from, the riverine area?
I want to talk to you on that on two levels. First is to clarify that the incident that happened at the Wadata Plaza was just one of the repercussions of not doing things properly or allowing certain people to try to control the destiny of the party, because over 130 aspirants bought the forms and filled the forms ready to be as members of House of Assembly at irregular primaries. By some strange arrangement, only 32 of them were screened in and the balance screened out with no letter to them telling them why they were screened out, with no arrangements as to how they can go on appeal. And by another strange coincidence, where we need only 32 in River State in the House of Assembly. So essentially, there was no competition. So 32 were screened in, the rest was screened out. The 32 were pretty much endorsed totally against the principles of anything that you call fair play. And so the people were angered and they moved on their own. I was just surprised, but not unpleasantly, if you ask me, to see them do what they did. They were frustrated. They had no avenue for seeking redress. They don't even have a letter telling them that you've been screened out. And they paid their valid fees. So I think that was something that shouldn't have happened from the side of the party, and that ought to be addressed.
And the party is here to address.
Is here to address
this issue.
There was a second part to which you asked.
Yes. If during the primaries the delegates are the ones who have the power to elect, wouldn't they just elect someone from the riverine area?
You're right there. There is supposed to be a theoretical and very largely practical acceptance of the fact that delegates come into the primaries hall with a fair amount of objectivity. So which means that they have listened to all the candidates as fairly as can be. Of course, if the candidates can't express themselves, that's the problem of the candidate. And that being so, they will go into that place, protecting the principles of the party, protecting the culture of the party. But I can tell you we're desecrating a lot of that. And we've heard even stories the full executive, the state exco of the party, had been sponsored by an aspirant on a pleasure trip, and they come back. What do you expect them to do? Even to have a one-on-one meeting with me, they will need a permission from somebody. And how does that make me feel as a member of the party? Okay. Now, you know, go further. We hear stories, oh, they're going to give 2-bedroom flat or this and that to delegates and all sorts of stuff. Okay. Now, how do you create a platform for equity with that kind of environment?
Engineer,
That's the problem.
Clearly, you are not satisfied with what is happening in the party. First of all, the election of delegates at the ward level is effective, and the processes of screening the candidates also is defective. Do you still have confidence in the primaries that will hold on Monday?
No, like you said, primaries will hold on Monday, but I qualified it that it will hold through 2 parameters. First parameter is that there should be a resolution of how the delegates get to be called delegates. That can be dealt with at the party level. They have the instruments and the institutional power to do that. That I can speak for them, I cannot, but that I do not know whether they can do it. I know that they have the power to make sure that candidates go into that primaries with a different level of a feeling of...
Now, should the party fail to do that, what would be your next step?
Hypothetical.
What would you do next? I mean, the primaries, like we've been saying time and time again, is very close.
Hypothetical.
There's so much silence from the leadership of the party. You do
first is hypothetical. Second is I'm not sure I'm ready to discuss that because it's part of strategy, isn't it? Why would I want to discuss that?
All right, Engineer Bex, if by looking at the situation on ground in Rivers State, how is this crisis going to affect the governorship elections on the side of the PDP and, of course, the presidential election as well, the support by the president about losing Rivers State to the opposition?
I can assure you that if my sense of evaluation is correct, every level of the party is worried. Every level of the party had made a certain level of assumption that no one individual or a clique would be so insensitive to the party's electoral fortunes as to insist that it's either them or the ship sinks. Now, it's a reality that we've confronted. So we're going to be dealing with it, but rationally, most people did not believe that the interest of a candidate, an aspirant, will supersede the interest of the party, even as we stretch to a serious competition that waits for us in the state.
A lot of the times in Nigeria's political terrain, what you find is if politicians are not, if the party is having some form of crisis in any state, or they're not happy with the internal democracy process in their party, you find a lot of defection. Do you see this happening?
I don't see why not. It's the sense that people will want to react when they are confronted with a situation and they have options. I mean, we're not going to close out options for people. That will be a pretense of one sort or the other. People will react. But most people, if you look at history again, the state consistently would like to stay with the central government, and it has done so over and over. So there is a sense that even if the governor was on another party, the preponderant emotion at the state level is that they connect with the center. They voted MPN, NRC, PDP. There's a pattern. Now even the PDP has somebody that they feel even more connected to than they did, even when they were voting their 2 million votes for previous presidents and so forth. So they have to be at a high level of trauma. You know, you have to take the threshold of trauma to a level where all sorts of things would happen. And most people you ask will tell you that we are approaching that level of trauma.
Okay, I was going to come to that, and perhaps that informed my question, my earlier question as to what your next step will be if the leadership fails to address the lingering problems within the PDP in the state level. But then, can you confirm to us, is it true that some aggrieved members of the PDP are planning to defect to the APC?
I can't. I don't know. If I do, I would have shared it with you with their permission, but I don't know.
Okay. All right.
So what's the way forward now, really? What can be done at this point in time? The clock is ticking fast. The primaries are close. What is the way forward?
If you ask me, this is also a clarion call for us to renew our sense of what a political party is. It happens to be the only system through which you can come into political office holding. And political office holding is directly related to the quality of life you have in your homes, to development, to policy, to education, to health. Now, why we would allow the instrument exclusively designed by the Constitution to give us governance, why we would allow it to be in the doldrums, is something that I think even, this is slightly more strategic and more long-sighted solution. I think that the INEC has a role to play to continue to redefine our politics in a way that it gives us development. I believe strongly that the youths and the elite class, the working class of this country, have a role to play. The sense that they can stay in the comfort of their bedrooms, on their lounges, and allow a few more aggressive people to come in and predicate what our future will be like. It's really hurtful. And I think we're getting to the point where change must happen, because not changing the party means not changing the country. Allowing the party to operate in the doldrums means that whatever they produce is what is going to serve us. And we must change the way the party does its business, especially when certain people believe that they can come in, ambush the party at the state level, ambush it at the national level, and take power. What do you think they will do to the electorate? Somebody who can pervert the internal party system to produce themselves as candidate. You would think that they will go into a general election expecting that people will come and vote for them. So we will never have anything that looks like an election. We will always see impunity, we will always see perversion, corruption, until you have a product. And that product will be all branded with elements that brought in their perversion, corruption, impunity. That's what they are. They can't be anything different from how they got there. Now, we have to be smart about this.
We've heard a few politicians talk about independent candidacy. Do we see this happening in the very near future if parties allow their own constitutions to be made every now and then?
I believe that ought to be in the plate. It should be in the mix. And we should mature over time. Even in America, independent candidates are suffering because there's a sense that they are iconoclastic. They are an island to themselves. They are not connected themselves well with the voter bases and what have you. So to that extent, I think that it's a struggle for an individual to make that kind of impact, but that it should be on the plate.
Now, Engineer, do you think that the agitation of the riverine people is actually popular enough to affect the voting pattern?
Totally. I'll give you certain things. 3 elements typically, and sometimes some people would say 2. But if you look at the fact that somebody is an incumbent, even if it's a minority, as in the case of Obama, you saw that incumbency, he was able to give us marginal vote. If you look at incumbency, you look at the emotions, the sentiments, equity sentiments that drive politics, that I'm also part of it, so I don't have to rebel. Then the third one we look at is the voter basis. When you look at the voter basis, when the idea to subvert our sharing model was being promoted, one of the key reasons they pushed in front was that there are 2 local governments in River State, and they have such a huge registered voter population that they can swing votes, and that's the Port Harcourt local government and Obiapo. Incidentally, these 2 local governments are essentially the only urbanized local government. And once a local government is as urbanized as these ones are, is anybody's guess what the population mix there is. So it's not everybody there that is Ikwere that will vote wherever Ikwere votes. It's totally so. I can't even believe people buy it. It's like saying to me in Lagos, because it's a Yoruba state, that you will go to Alaba International Market and you're going to win an election against an Igbo preference. You can't. Because there's a demographic reality that most of the people are traders, are exporters and importers that have taken over that space. So I think that we have to come to reality. The other voting blocks are concentrated, undiluted, unurbanized. So when you go to Ogoni and you have X number of voters, it's almost as if wherever they want to go, they will go. Okay. There is no mix where you have 20% this, 30% this. No. You go to the riverine area, very largely concentrated. You go to the Orashi area, very largely concentrated. And they vote not through any kind of sentiments of who bulldoze their way to power or who. It's not true. Okay. So you have to address the fact that the two LGAs they bandy around as a basis for being a dominant population is defective. Is defective.
Okay, so the agitation continues until the leadership of the PDP speaks up and makes a quick fix to the problem lingering in the PDP at the state level in Rivers State. We've been taking a look at the Rivers PDP governorship race, the agitation to respect zoning formula, and we've been speaking to Engineer Bex DAGOGO Jack. He's the immediate past chairman, Presidential Task Force on Power, and currently an aspirant for the office of governor in Rivers State on the platform of the People's Democratic Party. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and wish you all the best on Monday.
Thank you.